It's finally coming. Eventually. We still don't have a concrete release date or anything, but for those that have been following the Lionel Base 3, then, you know, summer, late summer, early fall, Christmas, we still don't really exactly know when the Base 3 is going to get released, but we've seen it in the flesh, on videos. We know it's being produced, theoretically, and it's looking like a stronger case than ever in the history of this thing's long storied release time that this thing's finally gonna come out. Now, my thoughts on things have changed a bit since the last time we visited this topic, and while I'm still not all in on apps controlling everything and being the end-all be-all, I'm starting to think that the ace of bases, this is going to be the end-all be-all for base control systems. Is that good? Is that bad? What does it mean for you? For our layout? For everybody that's in this hobby? This is a really kind of pivotal and important time, so let's dive in. So of course, if somehow you don't know what I'm talking about, these bases, the Base 1, the old, what I'm running right now, the TMCC, like 30 years old, gigantic 90s cell phone controller thing, was the original for command control. And then you've got the Base 2 with that cool quilling whistle and the neater bass that charges the the remote and all that stuff. And now the Base 3 with no cab 3, with no cab meaning like the remote essentially. And you can use other remotes, but the whole idea is this is going to be more app-based, that there's going to be a Cab 3 app that you download to your smartphone, which I would hold up as an example, but I use mine to film. You could use a tablet, all sorts of different options to be able to run your trains with tons of controls and tons of abilities, and crucially, the ability to update and improve and add features to those apps as these trains inevitably evolve. Three rails may remain, but the evolution of these products continues, and nearly everything that's getting released can be controlled by just about any method. You can still do conventional control off the throttle. You can do the Lion Chief remotes, either the remote that the engine came with or this handy universal remote that I absolutely love. You can also obviously use your control systems depending on the engine. But now this Base 3 makes all of that stuff that typically wasn't compatible, brings it all in together and allows you to use one control system to rule them all. It is literally the Hell's Gate bridge, the bridge to all of these other control systems that Lionel has had in the past. And it's obviously symbolic. There's a good reason why they chose that iconic bridge as the design for the Base 3. As I mentioned in my previous video, I'm still a big fan of physical remotes, whether it's this universal remote or even your Cab 1, Cab 2, might have a Cab 3 someday, but these are still, for me, the end-all be-all. And I'll get back to the Base 3 in a second, but kind of coming back around to remotes and how to use stuff and how to control stuff, and especially with this reliance on apps on your phone. Those apps need operating software in order to work off of. So even if you're using an older phone to control stuff and you have your newer phone for actual phone stuff, as that phone becomes obsolete and you can't update the operating system on that, there are lots of apps that require a minimum operating system in order to be downloaded to the phone. So unless you had an older version that happened to be on that phone and you just haven't touched it or haven't been able to update it, if you get too old of a phone and too new of an app, that still doesn't solve your problem. So I'm still a little bit leery on the whole app thing. I've been using the Lion Chief app more recently just to kind of try things out and see. And at the end of the day, I find myself going back to physical remotes because, you know, thumbs and fingers and accidentally making the thing accelerate off the side of the table on a touchscreen is much easier to do than on a physical remote where you have to press a button or turn a throttle. Granted, my throttle is pretty touchy, but whatever. Oh. Stay there, buddy. I forgot that was on. But anyway, the remotes, to me, are still going to play an important role. And thankfully, you can use the Cab 1L, the blue version of this, with the Base 3. And I think that's going to be a good holdover for folks that like physical remotes, that like being able to have something that they can press and punch in and use, because these things are going to last forever. Well, maybe not forever. I know some folks have commented about, especially like battery terminal things on these, or the antennas breaking off, but I mean, this thing's fine. Maybe my 5 button's getting a little bit weak on this, but considering that this is older than some of my viewers, I think we're doing all right. And to me, that's part of the longevity about enjoying these trains. I don't want to be able to have these trains to hand down to my son and have no way to control them. At the very least, conventional control should work on everything into the future, but having something to control those engines with, a physical controller, to me is going to outlast any sort of reliance on smartphone technology. Because again, even as your phone gets older, it can only support certain operating softwares. Those apps may require newer operating softwares in order to even work. So the jury for me is still out on the app-based part of it. But I am coming around to the idea of the Base 3 being the end-all, be-all ace of bases, because it's going to bridge everything, and it's going to mean that you can still use a physical controller for your old Lion Chief, the basic Lion Chief stuff, your TMCC stuff, of which I have quite a bit of here. Obviously all of your legacy stuff, your Bluetooth stuff, anything that can be controlled by Lionel currently should be able to be used, obviously not through this one, but through the blue version of this, or still you can use a cab 2. And that brings me to another common thing that I've heard people kind of on the fence about is, well, they should make a new remote that has a quillable whistle. And at first, I'm like, well, you can program the Cab 1L to use a quilling whistle type feature. I haven't looked into it a ton yet. I don't have it, obviously, for me to physically use, but I have finally had the opportunity to use a Cab 2, thanks to my friends at the Lower Susquehanna Valley Modular Railroads Club. I kind of butchered that a bit, but whatever, I'm going to go with it. Those guys in Columbia, Pennsylvania were fantastic, and I got to really see what the hoopla is about this spring-loaded switch, because aside from the way that the controller looks and the advanced features you have within Legacy, to me, having a Cab 2 controller with that quillable whistle has got to be, one of the most engaging, most interactive, most fun things to mess around with. I had the unique privilege of being at the helm of this massive consist that they had put together. Double-headed at the front, double-headed at the rear, and even a talking caboose. It was cool, and I was able to do the whistle with it from there, and just that level of engagement you're not going to get from a just one press button. If there's a quillable whistle on an app, that would be a great thing to have, but again, reliance on phones, you already know how I'm slightly old man cranky about that sort of thing. But I do still wish that either the Cab 2 remotes were more accessible. I know the parts for those don't exist anymore, that's why they stopped making them. But also to be able to make a Cab 3 remote that has some sort of a quillable whistle feature on it, just an extension maybe of the existing shell, you wouldn't have to do a whole lot with this, because this system works. This is easy to use. This is pretty straightforward. And as long as you know what the numbers do for your auxiliaries and everything, you're set. So I'm really looking forward, more so than I was before, to the Base 3 and the idea that this will be the end-all be-all for Lionel control systems. Because, again, for the future, I really don't see them making anything else that's reliant on a older control system. Everything's going to be wireless from here on out, with your Bluetooth control, with the app, with other competitors coming into the market with Bluetooth kind of control. This is definitely the future of the hobby, but this is also a unique hobby in that it has a strong reliance and a strong heritage on older products. And, for a long time, that's been, pre-war, post-war conventional control stuff, which is fine. But, anything made in the late 90s up till now has some sort of command control on it. Years from now, those engines are going to be what we're kind of alluding to with the post-war kind of stuff, I think. So having the ability to still control those with a base system, because those clearly can't be used with newer systems reliant on Bluetooth connectivity, that's going to be your bridge between the past and the future. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Weigh in the comments down below. Let me know, have you continued your pre-order of the Base 3? Are you one of the original holdouts for that thing? Are you considering getting one even though you still haven't? Have you been on the fence like me? Are you canceling your pre-order because the Cab 2 does what you want it to already? Are you just going to rely on an app because the app's going to be able to do enough of what you need it to? Let me know down in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that other fun stuff, and we will see you guys on the next one.